Hello and welcome to Self-Awareness Path. Have we ever been absolutely certain about something, only to later discover that we were completely wrong? It happens more often than we realize. The surprising truth is that many of our mistakes do not come from lack of intelligence, lack of effort, or even lack of information. They come from the brain itself. The human brain, designed to help us survive, does not always aim for accuracy. Sometimes it aims for comfort. Sometimes it quietly reshapes reality so that we can feel safer, calmer, and more in control. The brain's primary mission has never been perfect truth. Its mission has always been survival. For thousands of years, quick judgments meant survival in dangerous environments. If our ancestors heard a sound in the bushes and assumed it was a predator, they might run and live another day. If they stopped to carefully analyze whether the sound was actually harmless, they risked becoming prey. Over time, the brain evolved to prioritize speed and emotional stability over objective precision. That same ancient system still operates inside modern lives, influencing daily decisions without our awareness. One of the most powerful ways the brain lies to us is through cognitive biases. These are mental shortcuts that simplify complex information. They help us navigate a world full of overwhelming data, but they also create distortions. For example, confirmation bias pushes us to search for evidence that supports what we already believe, while ignoring anything that challenges those beliefs below the surface. When we think we are being logical, we are often unconsciously protecting our sense of certainty. Accepting that we might be wrong creates discomfort, and the brain naturally avoids discomfort whenever possible. Consider how often we defend opinions, even when strong evidence suggests otherwise. Instead of asking, "Is this belief accurate?" the mind asks, "Does this belief feel safe?" When an idea becomes part of our identity, questioning it feels like a personal threat. The brain reacts emotionally, sometimes even before logical reasoning begins. This is why debates between intelligent individuals can still lead nowhere. Each person is not only defending facts, they are defending emotional stability. Another subtle way the brain protects comfort is through memory distortion. Many assume that memory works like a recording device, capturing events exactly as they happened. Neuroscience shows something very different. Each time we recall a memory, we reconstruct it. During this reconstruction, details can change slightly to align with our current beliefs, emotions, and expectations. Over time, the memory becomes less about what actually happened and more about what feels consistent with who we believe we are. The brain edits the past to preserve psychological continuity. This editing process explains why two people can experience the same event yet remember it completely differently. Each mind shapes the memory in a way that protects its emotional narrative. If acknowledging certain details would create guilt, embarrassment, or regret, the brain may soften those details or remove them entirely. This is not deliberate deception, it is automatic self-protection. The mind quietly adjusts reality so that the individual can continue functioning without emotional overload. Comfort-seeking mental processes also appear in the way we predict the future. The optimism bias, for instance, leads many of us to believe that negative events are less likely to happen to us than to others. Even when statistics clearly show risks, the brain whispers, "It probably won't happen to us." This illusion reduces anxiety, allowing us to move forward with confidence. While optimism can be motivating, it can also lead to poor planning when risks are ignored. Again, the brain trades strict accuracy for emotional ease. Social relationships offer another example of how the mind shapes perception. When we care deeply about someone, we often overlook behaviors that we would immediately criticize in strangers. The brain selectively filters information to maintain emotional bonds. Admitting uncomfortable truths about people close to us may threaten stability in our social environment. So the mind minimizes those truths. We tell ourselves stories that keep relationships intact, even when the evidence suggests otherwise. The brain protects belonging because belonging has always been essential for survival. Fear operates in a similar way. When we are afraid, the brain exaggerates threats to ensure that we remain alert. However, once the fear passes, the brain may downplay the same risk to restore emotional calm. The result is an internal pendulum, swinging between exaggeration and minimization, rarely staying perfectly balanced. This constant adjustment demonstrates that the brain is less concerned with objective measurement and more concerned with maintaining emotional equilibrium. Understanding these mental tendencies does not mean that the brain is flawed. In many situations, these shortcuts are extremely helpful. Without them, everyday decision-making would become painfully slow and mentally exhausting. The challenge arises when we assume that our perceptions are always accurate. Confidence in our thoughts feels natural, yet confidence does not guarantee correctness. Recognizing that our minds sometimes distort reality opens the door to deeper self-awareness. One powerful step toward clearer thinking is learning to pause before reacting. When strong emotions appear, anger, excitement, fear, or certainty, it often signals that the brain is moving quickly into comfort protection mode. Taking a moment to ask, "What might we be missing?" interrupts automatic reactions and creates space for reflection. This small pause can prevent decisions driven entirely by emotional defense mechanisms. Another helpful practice involves actively seeking opposing viewpoints. Instead of asking only whether an idea feels right, we can ask what evidence might prove it wrong. This approach does not weaken confidence, it strengthens understanding. When beliefs survive honest challenge, they become more reliable. When they do not, we gain the opportunity to adjust before reality forces the adjustment upon us. Growth often begins at the point where comfort ends. Awareness of mental bias also improves communication. Many conflicts escalate because each person believes that their perception is unquestionably correct. Recognizing that every mind filters reality differently encourages patience and curiosity. Instead of assuming that disagreement means the other person is irrational, we can explore what experiences or emotional factors shape their perspective. Conversations shift from battles over who is right to explorations of how each viewpoint formed. It is important to remember that the brain's tendency to lie for comfort is not an enemy to defeat. It is a system to understand. These mechanisms develop to protect psychological well-being, helping humans endure uncertainty, loss, and constant change. The goal is not to eliminate them, but to balance them with conscious awareness. When awareness increases, automatic distortions lose some of their power, allowing us to see situations with greater clarity. Over time, practicing self-observation reveals patterns. We may notice that we become defensive when certain topics arise, overly confident in familiar areas, or dismissive of information that challenges long-held assumptions. These reactions are signals, not failures. They indicate where the brain is working hardest to preserve comfort. By observing these signals without judgment, we gradually build a more accurate understanding of ourselves. People who develop this level of awareness often experience a paradoxical benefit: less anxiety. At first glance, it might seem that realizing the mind is sometimes unreliable would increase uncertainty. In reality, the opposite often happens. When we accept that our first impressions may not always be correct, we become more open to learning and adaptation. Instead of clinging to the illusion of certainty, we gain confidence in our ability to adjust. Flexibility becomes a new form of stability. This shift also changes how we approach mistakes. If the brain naturally simplifies and distorts information, errors become an expected part of the human experience rather than personal failures. Each mistake becomes feedback showing where perception diverged from reality. The focus moves from self-criticism to improvement. Growth accelerates when we treat the mind not as a perfect guide, but as a powerful tool that occasionally needs recalibration. The same principle applies to long-term decision-making. When we recognize the influence of comfort-seeking biases, we become more willing to examine uncomfortable data, financial risks, health habits, relationship patterns, or career choices. Facing these realities may create temporary discomfort, but it prevents larger problems later. Short-term comfort often competes with long-term well-being, and awareness allows us to choose more wisely between the two. In daily life, small habits can gradually strengthen mental clarity. Writing down assumptions before making major decisions helps reveal hidden biases. Discussing ideas with people who think differently exposes blind spots. Reflecting on past predictions, what we expected to happen versus what actually happened, trains the mind to evaluate its own accuracy. These practices gently retrain the brain to value truth alongside comfort. Perhaps the most important realization is that everyone experiences these mental distortions. Intelligence, education, and experience do not eliminate them. Even experts in psychology and neuroscience remain influenced by the same cognitive shortcuts. Awareness does not create perfection, but it creates improvement. The more often we question our automatic conclusions, the less often those conclusions control us. As we move through an increasingly complex world, filled with information, opinions, and rapid change, the ability to recognize when the brain is protecting comfort rather than revealing truth becomes a powerful advantage. It allows us to think more clearly, communicate more effectively, and make decisions that align with long-term goals rather than short-term emotional relief. The next time certainty feels unusually strong, it may be helpful to pause and ask a simple question: is this belief completely accurate, or is the brain trying to make reality feel safer? That single moment of reflection can open the door to deeper understanding. When we learn how the mind quietly shapes perception, we begin to see both the world and ourselves with greater clarity. Our brains are extraordinary systems, creative, adaptive, and deeply protective. Yet true self-awareness begins when we recognize that even this powerful system is not always neutral. Sometimes it bends reality slightly, just enough to keep us comfortable. By learning to notice those moments, we step closer to a more conscious way of living, where decisions are guided not only by what feels safe, but also by what is real. Thanks for watching. Your support is crucial to us at Self-Awareness Path. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to stay updated and help our channel grow. Don't forget to like and share. It shows your appreciation and boosts our visibility. We value your feedback or any suggestions you might have, so drop a comment. Explore more content on our channel. There's plenty to discover. Thanks for being part of our community, and see you in the next video.